Oh, well. No audio, but how many of you remember that Super Bowl commercial from 2000, right? Or we can talk about the millennials that he was talking about earlier that he hired that, at this point they were still in grade school. They couldn't stay up to watch the Super Bowl commercials. All right, a little bit about me. First of all, I'm not a psychologist. I don't play one on TV. I'm not going to pretend to be one here, but we are going to talk about some psychological things. Not an animal behavioral specialist, though we will be talking about some of that as well. I do consider myself a self-proclaimed hacker since the time that I had my TI 994A with a 300 baud modem and doing dial pulse strings because we wouldn't pay for touch-tone phone in the house. So fun things like that. I spent many years at Hewlett-Packard as a field engineer, traveling all over this part of the country, East Tennessee, Southwest Virginia, Southeast Kentucky, visiting customers, doing hardware support, network support, installations, a lot of things like that. Currently working as a security architect for Scripps Networks, or now Discovery, used to be Scripps Networks. Get to work with a lot of our users, do security education there, awareness. I'm also on the faculty with the University of Phoenix. So I get to teach information security courses, cybersecurity courses, networking courses with them, help to work on course development. And I'm really passionate about security awareness. Several years ago, I got to hear Jason Street speak at DEF CON in their social engineering village. And one thing he said really jumped out at me. He said, at the end of the day, people don't care about your security awareness training. They don't care, right? They've got a job to do. Their job is to do X, Y, Z. They're there at work to do that job, to get that done so they can go home and do the things they really do care about. When you take 2 hours out of their day to make them sit in a security awareness training, that's just 2 hours that they can't be doing the things that are important to them. And so one of the things that he recommended was maybe we might want to change our security awareness training, or maybe do some things to make people aware of the things that they can do to protect their personal data or their family's data or their social engineering profiles. And then that would be something they'd be interested in, and they might be able to then take those behaviors and transfer those into the workplace. And so I started to do some of that over the last couple years in our company. I have really had some success. I've had the opportunity to share some of those with local library systems and some other folks in East Tennessee to really help to spread security awareness among non-security professionals and among non-IT professionals, and that's been fun. I'm also involved in the East Tennessee ISC Squared Charter Chapter. How many of you have heard of that so far? Okay. If you haven't, check with the check-in desks. They're supposed to have information about it. Charles Headley is around here somewhere. He's the ISC Squared East Tennessee Charter Chapter Membership Coordinator. We've got to say Charter Chapter. We can't call ourselves a chapter yet because we're still getting all of that going. So right now, if you're involved with ISC Squared at all, if you're ISC Squared certified, come see us. Get your name down on so that we can get you involved in the charter chapter. Once we've met the requirements over the next several months, we'll be able to open it up and anybody will be able to be involved, and it should be able to help to expand our security community in East Tennessee. So that's enough about me because you didn't come here to hear about me. Let's talk about what I'm going to be talking about. And let me give you a little bit of background. I've got a son and a daughter who are in high school. My son wants to become a vet, and he's very excited and passionate about that. He's my academic. My daughter is my social butterfly. She goes to school to spend time with her friends, and if she happens to learn something, that's gravy. She does work hard at her learning, but she comes at it from a completely different perspective. And they've been bugging us for pets for years, and we tried to do the fish, and that didn't work, and we did some gerbils, and that didn't work. And my wife had cats before we got married, but her allergies just got worse and worse, and I have allergies to them, and when the kids were born, we found as we visited people, they had allergies, so this was really something that was not going to be part of the equation for us. And over the years, the kids have asked, we want a puppy, we want a cat, and we tried a puppy breed that was supposed to be non-allergenic, and it didn't work for us, and This past year, my daughter said, I've heard there are some breeds of cats that don't produce as many allergens, and maybe we could look into some of that. And I heard from some other people who actually have some cats that do that, that it might actually be an option. So I told her, okay, well, you do some research and let me know what you find out. Well, she emailed me a 12-page paper about the breeds of cats that wouldn't produce allergens and the things you could do to help fight the allergies and all this to make it work. And I was really excited, right? But I'm a college instructor, so the first thing I did was scan her paper for plagiarism. And surely she just copied this from somewhere, right? No, she'd actually put the effort into it. And as my social butterfly, my non-academic person, I really saw the value in that, and that I said, I have to reward this behavior. We're going to be talking about rewarding behavior throughout here. I have to reward this behavior. So we started to look into it. The long and the short of it is a few months ago, we adopted Elfie and Athena, 3-month-old female Siamese cats. And I will say that so far they're working well with our allergy issues right now. So as that happened, that kind of changed our lives a little bit. We're having to deal with all the issues that you have with 3-4-month-old kittens, right? And how you adapt them to your family and try to get them to adapt to the things they should be doing. And as I've been doing security awareness, I started to draw some parallels with the things that we're having to do to get the kittens to behave in a specific way and the things we want to do to get our users to behave in a specific way. And that's kind of where the foundation of this talk came from. I kind of threw it out there as a fun topic, and I was really surprised they accepted it. So I hope you all enjoy it. Let's get started. Our goal is to modify behavior. And to do that, you have to initially start talking about attitude, right? Attitude is important. If you go into it with a bad attitude, things aren't going to work. If you're trying to modify the behavior of somebody that already is having an attitude, you're going to have some issues. So you have to take into account the attitude of the target and what perspective they're coming from, and take that into account. I'll give you an example. Again, I was a field engineer with HP. I was responding to a lot of people that had stuff that was broken, right? By the time they called me, they were already aggravated. One of my customers up in Johnson City was American Water Heater Group, and I got to work with them over several months with an ongoing issue with HP DDS4 tape drives that were failing on a frequent, like once a week basis. And they'd get ready to do their afternoon tape processing and backups and things like that, and the tape drive would fail regularly. And I got another call from them, tape drives failed again. You've got a half-an-hour window to get this replaced. We can take an outage right before that, before we have to start all our backup jobs to get in there. They came into it with a bit of an attitude because they had an issue. I was able to come into it with a bit of an attitude as well. I was able to go, okay, American Water Heater Group is about 2 miles from Greg's Pizza. So I'm going to call in an order. How many of you are from Tri-Cities or are familiar with Greg's Pizza in Johnson City? All right? Awesome place. If you've never tried it and you get to Johnson City, give it a try. You can't eat there. You have to take it out somewhere, but it's very good. So I stopped at Greg's Pizza, had already called ahead the order, so I brought in a stack of pizzas, so the IT staff was enjoying the pizza, and we could get that going. And eventually HP figured out their parts problems and got the issue resolved. But you have to deal with the attitude in order to modify behavior. So what kinds of behavior are we looking at, or what do we want to do? We're wanting to reduce or eliminate undesired behavior, right? In this case, in the case of your cats, this is one of the behaviors you want to eliminate, that destruction of everything coming and going from natural things that they want to do. What are some of the user behaviors that we want to get rid of? Obviously, clicking on links or opening attachments in emails, picking up that USB stick that they found wherever and plugging it in, downloading, installing software, circumventing your security controls. What are some of the other behaviors that your users have? Feel free to shout out that you might want to change, or you want to stop.
Holding the door for people.
Yeah, letting people in. Buying that laptop at the yard sale and bringing it in and plugging it in at their desk so they can figure out if they got it working. Don't you hate it when your IT admins do that and then they go, well, I'm going to get on the network with my administrative credentials. Yeah. So we want to try to work on modifying behavior. And of course, we initially respond negatively, right? Don't do that. Well, before we go there, let's talk a little bit about operant conditioning. There are a lot of different ways that we can modify behavior, and here's where some of the psychology stuff comes into it. They call it operant conditioning. One of the first ways is positive reinforcement. I'm sorry that's so small. But positive reinforcement is where you give something good when good behavior is done. It's a reward type thing, right? Positive reinforcement. In the case you see there, so the dog is not jumping up on her, so she gives the dog a treat, pats the dog on the head, that positive reinforcement type thing. The next one we have is negative punishment. Negative punishment, you're taking away something good in order to change the behavior. So the dog jumps up on them and they turn away. They take away that, they're not going to pay the dog attention anymore. This is one I use a lot with the cats. They've learned that when my alarm goes off in the morning, they can jump up on the bed and they'll get a little bit of petting before I have to get up and take a shower and what have you. But they can't tell time. And they may not necessarily hear the alarm, but they may think, it's got to be time, right? They'll jump up on the bed. Is it time to get petted? You know, if I roll over the other way and ignore them, they've learned, no, it's not time yet. And so that's that negative punishment where you're taking something away. Then you have positive punishment where you're adding something when the negative behavior has. So, the dog jumps up on you, you maybe, bop it on the nose. Or the classic with the cat's that water bottle, right? So that's negative punishment where you're providing some type of a feedback to reduce negative behavior. And finally, negative reinforcement where you're taking away something bad in order to stop behavior. So the dog starts jumping up on you and you're pushing them down. And then when they stop jumping, you stop pushing. That's negative reinforcement. We oftentimes will err on the side of negative reinforcement or punishment when it comes to security controls and when it comes to modifying user behavior, right? Has anyone seen the bad human bottle so that we can deal with our users? So what are some of the things that we do that are providing those types of feedbacks, right? You get the user pop-ups that say, hey, you shouldn't do that. Or we're blocking certain activities, or when users start to do something repeatedly, we're going to take away their privileges. Your machine has been infected 3 times, so you don't get to be a local admin anymore. We're reacting to that and making it look like we think our users are bad, giving them that negative feedback. Again, leading with negative reinforcement rather than positive reinforcement. And users can see the attitude that communicates with that. There may be times when we have to isolate their system and they can't do their job. Are we communicating that this is being done for a reason to protect the network, or are we communicating, hey, you're bad, you did something bad again, and now we're smacking you on the hand? Or the times when we have to call the users, how often are we interacting with the users in a way that's positive, or how often are we communicating to them, you idiot, what are you doing? Even if we're not actually saying the words. We're setting ourselves up for failure, and it's not going to work. So what are our options? Well, we can look more on the positive reinforcement side, where we try to reward the behavior, or we try to redirect behavior in a positive way. Again, I'll give an example with the cats. One of our cats, Athena, likes to burrow. She likes to dig in among covers and things like that. So in the middle of the night, if you're sleeping and she hops up on the bed, she may try to crawl in between the comforter and the blanket, or the blanket and the sheet between my wife and I, and that's no way to get a good night's sleep. And the first couple times, get out of there, don't do that. That doesn't work. What we found is if we were able to very positively take her out, put a little blanket at the foot of the bed, set her down there and cover her up with that blanket, she's got the same effect. She's in there with us. She's now got her little comfortable area under the covers. It changed the behavior, so it's not doing the bad thing anymore, and it's meeting both of the needs. So you have to kind of look for those examples as you're having your user interactions and the ways that you can do that. But again, you have to have the right attitude about it. And people can perceive attitudes. Cats are smart. They'll be able to tell how you're interacting with them and the attitude that you have along with it. Smithsonian did a recent study. They published it in 2014 about how smart cats are. And at the end of the study, they found that they said, all we can tell you is cats are smart. We can't tell you how smart because their individuality becomes such a factor in it, you can't really evaluate intelligence. With dogs, you train them to do something, you tell them to do something, they do it. With cats, you tell them to do something, and they may choose to, they may not. There's no way to evaluate if it was because they just didn't understand what you didn't want or they didn't care, right? Because they're individuals, right? Our users are the same way. Our users have other priorities. Our users are intelligent. Our users are not stupid, right? And they're going to have other priorities. So, we may be telling them constantly, you need to do this, you need to do this, or you may need to do this other thing. And they've got other things that are factors in that we're not considering. It's not because they're stupid. It's just because of the other factors that are part of the equation. How many of you, show of hands, how many of you have fallen into this trap here, right? Where you talk about the PEBCAC error, problem exists between chair and computer, or the ID10T stuff, right? We've all done it. We've all fallen into that trap of evaluating our users and our people that we're supporting through that filter of, well, they should know this stuff. I mean, we know this stuff. They should know this stuff. Well, maybe they shouldn't, or maybe we shouldn't have those expectations, or maybe we should stop with these type of perceptions that end up communicating more than we expect, even when we're not saying that directly to their face. It's important. Our users aren't morons. They're not idiots. They're not dumb. They're not stupid. They're not clueless. All right? They're trying to do the things that they're trying to do to get their job done, and it's our job to support them and to do it in a positive manner. The other thing that's part of the factor is that shame and embarrassment are not effective motivators. Okay, that's been proven psychologically time and time again. You can read various different things. There's a reference in here because, hey, college teacher, you got to reference and cite everything, and there's references at the end. But it's not an effective deterrent. Here's an example. Intermedia, they're a business cloud provider, did a survey last year, 1,000 office workers. And in the survey, they asked them about different things. And one of the things that they found out was 59% of the employees who were hit by ransomware paid the ransom out of their own pockets rather than contacting their IT departments or their security departments. Let that sink in for just a minute. We're talking about payments, $300 to $1,000 a pop, that these users are paying because they're too afraid of being shamed by their security department or by their IT department or possibly losing their job or other things like that. What type of negative reinforcement have we done? What security posture does this put your environments in if users are going to do that type of thing when they've got ransomware instead of letting people know so that they can intercept it? And this could spread through your environments, and who knows what else is left on their computers after they've maybe paid, and yeah, here's the key to unencrypt it, and we're not going to get you again. You don't know, but we've set up a culture and an environment where our users are afraid to report. If they called in, are they going to get a positive response, or is that help desk person going to go, why did you do that? Is a security person going to say, why would you click the link? There is no prince there that's going to give you money if you click. How often are we responding positively? I had the opportunity to listen to Startup Security Weekly back in August of last year, and Ronnie Feldman was on there. And he works for Learning and Entertainment, and he does security training. And he does it from an improv standpoint. And if you ever get a chance to listen to it, again, it was Startup Security Weekly in August. You can look for Ronnie Feldman or what have you. But it's from an improv perspective. Are you familiar with improv? How many of you watched Whose Line Is It Anyway? Who can tell me what the main key of improv is? There's one small phrase that's the main key of all improv. Yes, and. That's exactly it. I've got it up on the screen, duh. I'm like, where is it? That's supposed to be on my next slide. Yeah, yes, and. When we can start to put our training and our security awareness and even our interactions with our users into that yes, and posture, we can change the equation. So a user says, well, I need to be able to install software to... Yes, you do need to be able to do your job, and we need to be able to secure the environment. So let's work with you to try to come up with something that works together so that we can meet your requirements and the security requirements. Instead of, no, you can't install. Why would you want to install software? It's a completely different attitude, a completely different perspective. And our goal is to be able to develop habits, right? And to be able to develop positive habits, change bad habits, or develop positive habits before things become bad habits. So we're going to give you another example. Cats scratch stuff, right? They do. We just know that. Why? It's normal. It's an instinctual behavior. They do it to remove the dead outer layers of their claw. They can't chew their nails like we can. So they do it to remove the claws. They do it to mark their territory. They do it to stretch and flex. Variety of different reasons. So how do we deal with that? Well, I mean, we provide alternatives, right? You get them a scratching post. You have to make sure that you can provide alternatives that work for them and that work for you. You know, that might work well for your cat and yourself, or you might need to go to something a little bit more extreme. We've settled for something in the middle right now, though it keeps getting bigger and more. And every time my wife goes shopping, I brought home some more cat toys. Okay. But yeah, you have to figure out the solution that's going to work for them and that's going to work for you, that's going to change the behavior, and you have to make it fun. Again, have that positive reinforcement, that way of working with them to make sure that it's an incentive to do the positive thing. So then when they come over to the couch and they reach up their claws, you can be there and grab them, move them over to the scratching post, let them know. And then when they've done that, or when they're on that, you reinforce that. Yes, that's very good. You know, you give them that reinforcement. You also want to limit their ability to do harm. So, you know, if you have that super nice, expensive couch that the minute they sink their claws into it, they're going to leave things there. You know, you might want to hang a little bit of aluminum foil there or something, limit their ability to do harm so they get a little bit of feedback. Or if you've got, you know, the nice vase that's sitting on a stand and they might want to use that stand to scratch on, you take the vase and move it until you can change the behavior. You want to limit their ability to do harm, also to harm themselves. I never thought I was going to have to, with 2 kids in high school, go back out and find child locks for cabinets, right? By the way, if any of you have gone through that and you're needing to find child locks now, you can't get them at Lowe's and Home Depot anymore. They stopped carrying them. I had to go to Target to get child locks. But I had to put child locks on the cabinets because we got chemicals and other things in there. The cats quickly figured out how to open the cabinet doors. And you know, there were things in there that could do them harm. So while we're trying to train them not to get in there, we had to be able to put controls in place to limit their ability to harm themselves or harm some of the other things around. You want to be able to remove that access or limit access to sensitive or harmful areas. And you've got to be able to provide constant reinforcement, right? It's got to be consistent. You can't have it so that I'm working on the computer, the cat's over there scratching on the couch, I'm just going to ignore it because I'm working on the computer. You've got to be able to provide constant reinforcement all the time in order to modify behavior. Otherwise, you've got an inconsistent message. And remember that scolding only works if you catch them in the act. So if you're gone for the day and you come home and the couch is scratched up, you can't take the cat over there and say, look at what you did. It doesn't work. They don't associate that. Now, even though our users and people are more intelligent and they can make those associations better, they've got better memory for being able to do that, it's still ineffective for our users. So let's take the same things we just talked about and translate them in for modifying user behaviors. People click stuff. They just do, right? Why? Why do users click things? Well, it might be habit. That's what they do all day long, right? They get there, they click this, they click that. They're used to maybe having to click through on an error or click through on a license agreement. They click things. It's a habit. They might open emails because why? They might be important. I might miss something that's important. I don't care that it went to quarantine. It's got something in there that looks urgent, so I'm going to take it back out and look at it, right? Or they might be coming from the perception that nothing bad will happen. Surely opening this email can't cause me any problems, or clicking that link, because we've got a security department and they're protecting us, right? So it may be that perception that nothing bad can happen. Or maybe even we're encouraging it. Okay, how many of us tell our users all the time, do not open attachments, especially if they come from people you don't. Do not click on links in email, even if it does come from somebody you know, because, you know, who knows, they might have given away their password and their account's been compromised, and now you've got a phishing mail that's going out internally from internal users to internal users. I mean, it happens, right? So we tell our users that. How many of you tell your users, don't click on links in emails, right? And then next thing you know, they get a message from HR that says, oh, we're going to be doing the company picnic. Click here to be able to sign up. Or they get a message from some other thing. We're going to be doing a survey. You're going to be getting a message from SurveyMonkey. You need to be able to click the link. Or we don't have the processes and standards in place that say, this is what we're going to do. We're not going to click on links in emails, and we're going to empower all these other parts of the organization to be able to not do that. We have inconsistent messages, and it confuses our users. So part of that is our education programs, right? And I'm going to step on some toes here. How many of you tell users, security is everybody's responsibility? You have messages like that. We have posters and that. Security is not everyone's responsibility. At the end of the day, it's just not. I'm probably going to step on some toes. I'm probably going to make some people mad. You can disagree with me afterwards. There are some behaviors we want them to do, but at the end of the day, our users aren't really the ones that are responsible for security. That's why we bring in security professionals, right? After the Equifax breach, you didn't see the users that developed the code get fired. You didn't see the people that weren't necessarily consistent on their patches getting fired. You saw the C-level person that took the responsibility for it. They're the people that are responsible, and your security people are responsible for making sure that our users know what to do. We can't necessarily always go into it and say our users should know all the security stuff that we know, and they should know it, because that's our job. We need to be able to give them the pieces that they should know and not much more, and that's really where the education comes in. Being able to treat education as something that is effective for our users and not just a checkbox. You have that annual security education that your company puts together. It's a 2-hour video that they have to watch, or they bring in somebody that's going to lecture them for 2 hours about all the different things that they have to do. So now they take that time out of their schedule, they come, they sit right here, they listen to it, and maybe 5% of it is applicable to their job. And the whole time that they're sitting there, they're going, really? I've got to sit and listen to this again? I don't need this. All I do is mop floors, or whatever. So we need to be able to make sure that our security training isn't one size fits all, that we can customize it, and that we can keep it simple so that our users understand the specific things that we want them to do, and that will be able to empower them to do their jobs and do it safely. And make it specific, so you don't have that same big 2-hour training for everybody. You have training that's specific to the people in specific roles. So when you have facilities staff that are doing maintenance and they do 1 or 2 applications, you don't need to have them sit and listen to 15 minutes about business email compromise. They're not going to get that email that says, hey, send me W-2s. And even if they do, they'll go, huh? I don't have access to that. So make your security training simple, make it short, make it frequent, so that users get the points they need and can understand what they need to get out of it and be able to respond there. One way that we see that a lot is with phishing simulations. Do you phish your users? Send out simulations? They can be very effective as long as you use them properly, and we'll talk about some of that in a minute. Or you may have tabletop exercises that you want to do with certain portions of your organization. Be able to structure those so that they know what their role is and how they can interact. But again, don't bring people into the room that are going to be involved in these things, that are going to have to sit there for however many hours it's going to be, and they've got one thing. Yeah, I'm going to have to talk to the media. Okay, I got to sit here and listen to all this. It's not going to be effective. So again, we want to have alternate behaviors, right? You got that scratching post for the cat. So what are some of the alternate behaviors you might want to have for your users that click things? Well, let's take reporting phishing for an example. You want to make that easy. If you tell our users, all right, if you get a suspicious email message, you need to forward it to this big long email address that they've got to type in. And then they forward it to you. And then you call them and say, no, I can't do anything. I don't have email headers. You've got to open up a new message to me. Now you got to take that message, drag it in. They don't know that. Make it easy. Figure out a way to have an easy button. A lot of companies have plugins that you can do in Outlook where they can just click something and they can get that to you, and they can get it to you quickly. You got to make the positive behavior easy, and then be able to give them immediate reinforcement so that when you do your phishing simulations and they report it, because that's the behavior you want, right? That's that positive behavior you want. You want to make sure they report if it's suspicious. Do you get them that immediate positive reinforcement? Yes, that was great. Have some Outlook rules or whatever going so that the minute they report that, or within a couple minutes, they get a response back. Yes, you identified something that could have been bad and you reported it, and we appreciate it. Or when they do report things that are outside of your simulations that are real threats, or even if it's just spam, that you give them that feedback in a fairly rapid manner so that they know, this is the behavior we want to do, this is the things we may not necessarily want to do. But if they just have this button that sends it away somewhere and they never get any feedback, you might be able to use that to harden your controls or do other things, but you're not going to change the behavior. You've got to be able to give the feedback back to the users in order to change behavior. And you may want to gamify it a little bit, right? Where'd it go? Come on, there we go. You might want to gamify it. So as you get statistics back and say, our ad sales department is great. They had a 60% reporting rate on our last phishing exercise. You can say, hey, next time you guys might want to measure up to that. You might not necessarily want to communicate that your facilities department had a 12% reporting rate, or that they had an 80% click rate. But make it competitive, because people love to compete. Have some way of rewarding the positive behavior too. Recognition, status, public recognition works really well. You see here, one of the things that we've done recently is we start to, for our phishing simulations, we give out some little things. And we have the little, we got them cheap at Oriental Trading Company. But we give them out with a little certificate on them. You can't see the certificate there. And we give the little ones out to the people who are the first ones to report a simulation. So every simulation, the first one to report it will get a little fishy, right? Anybody want a fishy? All right. But our people that are reporting threats, every month we give out a little bigger one with a little bigger certificate on it and say, this is the person that reported the most real threats in the month of whatever. And then we'll get a picture with them. And this guy had some fun with it, so we played it up a little bit. But we get a picture with them, and we share that with the company. These people are the people that are doing the positive things we want. Here, Robin. And that way, other people in the organization know that there's that positive thing. We don't communicate that, well, this person clicked on it, or this department did poorly. That's not going to get the behavior changes that you want to have. You want to limit the ability to do harm, right? That's the same thing that we were talking about, the child locks. This is where it comes down to the classic cyber hygiene. Your CIS top 20s, your least privilege, your multi-factor, all those things that you should be doing to secure your environment. You need to make sure you're still doing those. You need to make sure that you can limit the ability that our users have to shoot themselves in the foot. Because again, you're the security professional at the end of the day, or you're the IT professional. So limiting that ability to do harm is critical. And constant reinforcement, right? So we're not just having that once a year security training and, okay, go here and watch the thing and check the checkbox at the end. That you have ways of being able to communicate simply and effectively and frequently so that users know that those messages are at the top of their mind all the time. And again, remember that scolding only works if you catch them in the act. And even then, it's not very effective. You've got to keep it positive. You've got to make sure that you're not shaming people. If you're shaming your users, they're not going to come to you. So when they have that security event, the likelihood of them actually reporting it properly is fairly low. At the end of the day, what do you want? The user is going to click the link in the phishing mail, right? They're going to give away their credentials at some point in time. How many incidents have you done and investigated where when you finally get down to it and you get to the user that clicked and you say, what happened? Well, I got the email, and the minute I clicked it, I realized there was something wrong. How many of you hear that message when you actually get to, they know, right? The minute you click it, you know. Well, why didn't you report it? Well, I was afraid of what you were going to say, or I wasn't sure. Let's change that equation so that people know when they report, that's a good thing. We understand that mistakes are going to happen, right? but make sure that they know that they can come to us and they can report it, and we're not going to shame them. We're not going to throw them out. In fact, we may even take the opposite thing. So we may talk to them after the fact and say, in this security incident, you came to us and you reported it, and it's great. Can we use you as an example? And maybe tell the rest of the company, we had a mistake happen, and somebody clicked a link, and it happens. And they came to us, and because they came to us, and they came to us quickly, they called the help desk, they knew what to do, and we were able to go and find it, and we were able to respond, and we were able to quickly block those sites, or we were able to quickly take that machine off the network, and because of that, we could have saved ourselves millions of dollars in potential damage because the user recognized a mistake and reported it to us. If we can have that positive perspective, we can change behavior. Keep the goal in mind, right? When you own a pet, in this particular case we're talking about cats, there's going to be a certain amount of unpredictability, right? Uncertainty. You can't predict what they're going to do. They have a mind of their own. You have to take that into account, and that's part of the fun, right? Remember that in our companies, it's all about business. At the end of the day, they have to be able to do business. It's not always going to be predictable, and people are going to make decisions based on other factors as well, things outside of security. You just have to balance all that and keep a positive attitude about it. Does it work? Well, much of the time it does work. Be adaptable, be able to respond to those times when it doesn't, because it's not always perfect. All right, questions, comments, snide remarks, and references. Go ahead.
So give me an idea of what you think the minimum percentage of people you need to fish internally is to be effective.
100%. I don't see any reason that anybody should be exempted from your phishing exercises, and I've battled this over and over and over again. We can't send those to our executives. Okay, so let's make sure we post a notice on our website that says, our executives are exempt from phishing emails. Please, bad guys, don't send them to them. If a user can receive a message from an outside source that they can potentially click on, or that can potentially cause them problems, they need to be part of your phishing exercises.
Well, those are the guys that are the most at risk anyway.
They can be, and a lot of times they'll have they may use the excuse, well, our execs handle those emails. And we had our director of risk actually sit down with some of our execs, our executive assistants, after we did a phishing exercise where we targeted the executives specifically, and those assistants were interacting with the messages, and we got some results. And he went online and he did a little bit of OPSEC, and he grabbed some data, or he grabbed information about them that he could find just in social media, walked up to their offices and just sat down and talked to them. They didn't know him from Adam. How are you? How did your kids do in their soccer game? How is it? And started to give them the perspective of what he could learn just digging information about them, and then making them realize just how effectively they could be targeted, as well as our executives, and some of the risks that were associated with there. And it ended up being a positive conversation. Yes, sir.
How do you see security kind of changing the dynamic of their relations with users, with other IT departments, to help with this awareness and the open communication back to security when they do experience something that is negative to security posture?
So if you don't have relationships with people, you can't change behavior. That's what it comes down to. If your security organization is perceived as these people that operate in this tower, and they're going to come to you and they are going to punish you, and it's going to be bad, and you never want to hear from security, they're not going to come to you. You're not going to be able to work with them to develop things. If you have that partnership, then they might say, hey, we're working on this project. We might be able to bring them in. Or if you start to insert yourself in positively in some of those things, you can affect behavior a lot more effectively. Yes, sir.
So, you're sitting on to send a fixed messages. So the training sounds like it needs to start with management and the rest of the company first. So what do you do with the marketing and the HR to not send those surveys or do it differently?
So it all comes down to risk, right? And you have to be able to communicate that risk to people who can make the decisions. And thankfully, more and more often, as we have more and more compliance-driven things that are being seen from a high level, from a C level, from a board level, more and more those types of people are being exposed to security risks and security challenges. So if you can start to communicate back up and down again through your CISOs or through your other people that have a feedback at that level, you can drive change from both directions. So you can have your security professionals that are saying, you really don't need to do this, and then you can have the people at the higher level being able to say, well, how can we empower our organizations to function effectively and securely? All right, thank you for your time.